thank you for being here to hear our perspective on this very critical topic, that is talent acquisition. So post-COVID, we've faced multiple storms, from great resignation to the great reshuffle, to hiring freezes, to layoffs. But one thing has become constant, and one thing has emerged out of it, which is that recruitment is a strategy today. And emerging technologies such as AI, RPA, generative AI, they are enhancing and improving the efficiency of recruitment. To that point, Salil, you represent Capgemini, which hires in really large numbers. So why don't you tell us about the key, triggers shaping the hiring industry?
Sure. Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Technology has a huge role to play, Pooja, in shaping and reshaping talent acquisition. You mentioned COVID. Before COVID, if I have to take a step back and look at how talent acquisition was operating, a lot of it had to do with traditional ways of acquiring talent and predominantly using Excel sheets as their core technology. With COVID and post-COVID, the landscape is changing. Technology has a huge role to play now. If you are not leveraging technology, particularly with AI coming in, and if you're not keeping pace with technology, you're very soon going to realize that you're not able to compete in the market space. So technology has a vital role to play in talent acquisition. I have a very strong feeling that in the next year and a half to 2 years, companies that have not leveraged technology are going to struggle big time.
So Naina, your perspective on the current scenario?
Absolutely. So I think, as my colleague mentioned, I think when I started my career 2 decades back, the kind of processes and technology, or actually lack of technology, and the way how the talent acquisition function has really evolved has really been phenomenal, in terms of whether you're talking about looking at resumes, sourcing, postings, talking really about what exactly is the value that you bring to the table. So gone are the days where you just look at sifting resumes and screening. I think you're really talking about what is the value that you're creating, what is the talent that you're really bringing onto the table, really going ahead and supporting the business imperative. So keeping that in mind, I think absolutely aligned to say that yes, technology is a key, and people who are not able to leverage it, there are various tools in the market, there are different offerings. I think currently the piece what we're looking at is what is it that one size that fits all, and does it, and is it supposed to? Because we have, I'm sure all of us are from organizations where they have different businesses, different verticals, different needs, different stages of evolution where they are at. So absolutely a key imperative for business and organizations to look at.
Interesting. So, when we talk about HR transformation and we talk about multiple function areas under HR, from recruitment to learning to payroll to comp and benefit, recruitment has always been one of the top ones where automation started. Be it SaaS platform, be it taking the process in the cloud. Today, when we talk about generative AI, we are using generative AI. There is research that says that generative AI enhances your hiring outcome from sourcing to experience to selection. And it really makes hiring faster, more efficient, and it does so much of, human mundane processes is automated. So we have these technologies, but of course for hiring you need the human gut. You need that, the emotional connect. So, Salil, how are organization, HR leaders balancing these two?
Balancing automation and AI?
Yes, high tech and high touch hiring.
Yeah. So if I have to look at recruiting, there are 4 pillars for recruiting. You source, you evaluate, you offer, and then you onboard, right? If you look at the stages that happen in between, or the sub-processes that happen in between, predominantly are very mundane, monotonous, and perfect candidates to be automated. So let's take an example. After you've sourced a candidate, what do you do next? You call somebody, try to do an interest check of the person, try to find out various parameters of the person, and then if the person is interested in the job, you line up an interview. Okay? That's candidate after candidate after candidate, you do the same thing. Right? Perfect candidate for automation. Go to the next step. You do the steps between evaluation and offer. You're basically collecting some prior experience letters. You're collecting educational documents. You're collecting some other financial documents. Perfect candidate for automation again. Between offer and onboard, what are you doing? You are trying to gather some information. In a lot of IT companies, we do what is called background verification. And then, there's some connect that happens. All this sucking up bandwidth of recruiters. Okay. So again, the three processes I named are perfect candidates for automation. These are repeatable processes you automate. The first process, which I didn't talk about, is sourcing. And you correctly said, Pooja, that's where intelligence comes in. So you give in a job description. Okay. I am looking at that job description, Sunaina is looking at the job description, and Pooja is looking at that job description. All the three of us will come out with three different results. Okay. And it purely depends on the maturity level that each of us carry. So if you give that exercise to somebody with 2 years of experience, that person is going to come out with completely different, and the business is going to get frustrated with that output. Okay, so that's where intelligence comes in. That's where you bring in Gen AI, and then you leverage Gen AI at the source of the process, and the rest of the process is automated. Leverage the two, and you have a phenomenal result that comes out. What that allows you to do is give recruiters time to focus on their core competency, which is getting the candidate home.
To ask the audience here, just raise your hands to show that you have a fully automated recruitment process. So I just want to see how many of you have using automation for recruitment. Okay, so I see very few hands. That means I understand that it's still work in progress. Because sooner or later, you will definitely arrive there. Maybe it's work in progress. So Sunaina, I'd like to ask you that what are the challenges one faces when they move from traditional hiring process to an automated one?
So I think when we talk about AI, the challenge is right there when we really talk about intelligence, because intelligence is complex. I think talking about, when we talk about what exactly does AI do, we are looking at things like what is the vast amount of data that it really needs, the kind of bias which is coming in. I think when HR teams really kind of put their heads together, whether it's the different verticals of HR or businesses, and the other pieces, I think, which is really key. So one is, of course, the bias. The other is the vast amount of data which may not exist. Some of it which we really saw was really to do with only the candidates who apply onto that particular system, would you get the data out of that? So if you really, does that mean that you've really got the key talent? Probably you haven't, because I'm sure a lot of you who are in the talent acquisition space also look at sourcing, keeping certain set of candidates warm, may not be for a role presently, or the ones who've not really applied. The other is just the system AI, defects which kind of come in. For example, the kind of data that it's reading from the organization. Simple things like if the data is heavy towards hiring men, with the ML AI coming in, for all you know, it does land up shortlisting resumes which are typically more male-driven or from a particular set of college, which could be due to a referral program or some kind of a proximity which kind of exists. I think the other piece where I find it very interesting, I wouldn't call it challenging, but I think it's very interesting, is the multi-generational workforce that we have in terms of, there are certain people who will really kind of get your gut reaction, right? When you finally put those final 3 resumes where everybody has met, I think the sense would be like, what does your gut say? Where do you think the person's going to kind of fit in? And I think that gut reaction is something that I don't think an AI will be able to filter. Last but not the least is, of course, when you're talking about effectiveness and efficiencies, I think we really, it's not something that is done and dusted. It is something which will have to evolve over a period of time. We'll have to continue to invest, because I thought that is one very interesting anecdote which I heard in one of our meetings, where they said, okay, this is done and we are all good to go. And unfortunately, that's not what happens. As Salil rightly mentioned, that all three of us, if we have to shortlist resumes basis a particular job profile, we may have our own biases come in. So those are a couple of things which really are on the top of our mind as we look at these challenges, and obviously, how do we address them? At the same point in time, how do we ensure that we are continuing to evolve ourselves with it?
I just have a follow-up question here. Are any of you using generative AI to create job descriptions, and where in the automation is actually, where in recruitment automation is generative AI actually fitting in? Any one of you?
Yes, we are, but sorry. We are using it, but there is a final test or a check, which is something that a human does at the back end to see, does it make sense? And yes, we are also doing it at a pilot space, as in piloting the entire thing, because Qualcomm's, of course, we hire engineers, so it's a lot easier when we are talking about, a certain set of language or a certain set of coding. Of course, it gets more complex as you go to leadership levels and really see what are you looking at. So that becomes, I think, the human element of it, the leadership angle of it. I think the emotional quotient of folks which are around, those are the things which they still continue to, I think they're still evolving, is what I would say.
Yeah, very rightly said.
If I can piggyback on what she said, it's not just creation of the job description where we are leveraging AI. Even finding the right candidate in this mass talent pool that you have, okay, you can leverage Gen AI. As Gen AI will evolve, you will find that Gen AI will replicate all the current manual processes and feed in the best product that you can get from the entire process. So today it's very human dependent, and my gut feel is that will go away in the next year and a half, 2 years or so, as Gen AI starts evolving.
Exactly. So artificial intelligence is going to get smarter and smarter. The more the people use it, it's going to get smarter. So that is what the future is. So when we talk about recruitment, there are certain aspects that really stand out, especially in these last 2 years. That is, gig economy, contract workers, DE&I has become such a big agenda, and its success, in a way, also depends upon the recruitment process. And Sunaina also mentioned that, okay, AI is helping us shortlist candidates, work on the algorithms to predict data, but you have to make sure that it's not picking up bias. To that question, I'd like to ask both of you, how do you see, or what do you see as the future of recruitment?
That's a tough one, but to be honest, I think future of recruitment will be AI-driven. It will take away a lot of human element that exists today and transfer that human element to focus on the candidate. And to me, the win is how many candidates of the right quality that we can get at the right price and at the right time. Okay? Gen AI is going to help at various processes and the sub-processes to find that right candidate. Okay? So if you ask me, Gen AI plus automation will become the backbone of recruiting. Today, a lot of companies struggle because they are a lot manual and partially automated. That will change significantly in the next few months or years, probably.
And just to add to that, I think for me, the way I've seen the evolution of talent acquisition, it's also a function that I see in the next couple of years, I'll not say months, but I think in the next couple of years is also going to break away from HR. I think it's clearly a CEO's agenda. It is a business imperative. I think business to thrive, stay alive in a lot of scenarios, it is extremely important that it's driven like a business function. I think there's so many times that we've heard from our stakeholders at various stages of our careers that, hey, we like a guy, but HR is talking about a particular policy, a particular, probably there'll be disparity, probably, we really can't get, the culture may not be a fit and things like that. But I think what we're really talking about is the fact, how does business run? What is really the future of where we are? So I do see talent acquisition, as Salil rightly pointed out, we are going to be moving towards Gen AI, but I also see this becoming a more robust agenda which is on the table for the business leaders more than what the other functions of HR is.
No, very rightly said. And before we let you go, I just want to bring about another point, which is that when you are devising the recruitment strategy, there is also this tussle between building and buying talent. And recruitment also means that you are looking for retention, the ones you hire, for it to be a successful recruitment strategy. So how do you fit in that plug about cross careers, internal mobility, development of the workforce as a recruitment process? Either of you.
So, I read this somewhere, retention is the new recruiting, right? So you don't want to go out in the market and keep hiring. You want your existing employees to get the best out of the organization that they are representing. So institutions, organizations are investing heavily on retaining their talent. So upskilling becomes the next big thing along with recruiting. So while you go to the market to hire that skill, can I train my existing employee to upskill and become competent or become better? If you do that and the employee believes that the organization is investing time in him or her, they're going to stay back. And you need those many fewer people in the organization, and you have better productivity that comes in because of the known talent that you have within your organization. So talent management, which includes L&D or upskilling of resources, is huge at the moment. So, and I think organizations will invest a lot in not just retention, but in employee management.
Exactly.
I think just to add to that, we are seeing, I'm sure all of you are reading in the newspapers in terms of the kind of commitments that different CEOs and CHROs are making in terms of upskilling their people. But I think the moot point is this, that at the end of the day, this is a team sport. Getting into HR, I'm sure all of us belong to different verticals, right? Some of you may be HR BPs or different connotation that you may have, L&D, talent development, talent acquisition, employee engagement, etc. I think sometimes we are at a stage now that to exist in silos will not work. So where we are really looking at retention, it can't be that it's somebody else's job. It takes a whole village to raise a child, as they say. So I think people who are really genuinely interested in careers, they want to invest, they want to stay on, they believe in the the value creation that the organization is doing. I think that's the other buzzword that we're hearing today. What is the intent of the organization? What is the purpose that the organization is leading with, and we want to stay? I think that's the whole piece which is really important, that everybody comes together to really see what does the employee want, employee to go ahead, articulate in terms of what is the opportunities which exist and what are the various ways, programs, processes, conversation, coaching, mentoring. There's just so much which is going on just to ensure that they are able to bring their best selves to work every day.
Yeah, and we have research that says that the ones in 20s right now, the number one thing that they look for in employer is career development, opportunities to work in cross functions. So, that's the reality. I think we have about a minute or two to take any audience question. Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Misha from Saxo Fifth. This question is for the dais. I totally agree that talent acquisition is getting reshaped by generative AI coming in. I want to know your thoughts on how generative AI can really contribute into the whole selection of the right candidate. And when I say right candidate, it's not filtering on basis of experience or what technology or skill set they know, but the behavioral traits, the overall personality, or how do we know that a startup where every employee or every associate has a very, very major role to play. And eventually you don't end up hiring somebody wrong and leading to early attritions or not being able to maintain the overall culture because you just made a wrong hire.
Is that for me or for her?
For anyone, yeah.
So I'll take the question. Like I said, generative AI is still evolving. What you will see eventually at some point in time is it will start figuring out the attributes, the right attributes of individuals, not just from your resume, but also all the social media that you interact in at the moment. Okay, we are not there yet. It is going to take time for that process to evolve. But then, once that evolves and you have an algorithm behind it, the algorithm will identify the right candidate which you are looking for and find it from the various channels. Today, if you ask a sourcer, how does he or she identify the right candidate? They have a job board. They go to the job board. They do a contextual search, or they do a Boolean search, and they find a person they believe that's the right person. Have they done enough research to find out if that's the right person that I am looking for? Answer is no. And you ask the person why, he or she just doesn't have the time to do it. So that's when Gen AI is going to play a big role. My personal belief is it will start evolving with the introduction of various kinds of technologies to identify the right people from the various audience that we have at the moment. And mind you, it will, again, my personal thing, this is where I will take it if I have to do it. It will not just identify the right talent in India. It should have the ability to identify the right talent across the world.
So with that, okay, I think that could be just the last question. Can we have the mic here? Oh, sorry.
Hello. Thanks. A question to Sunena. So, I've seen that nowadays organizations, including product companies and services, both are going very aggressively on, maybe this year might be an exception where people are hiring a lot of freshers from the colleges.
Can you walk ahead? Your voice is not coming.
My voice is audible now?
Yes, better.
Okay. So organizations are hiring a lot of freshers, fresh engineers from colleges, right? Now, very interestingly, what I've seen is that, and primarily this is from services point of view, working with product organizations, when it comes to train them and make them capable and then we want to put across to the customers, obviously there's a lot of automation which goes into when we are upskilling these folks, right from the time of the selection to the hiring as well as training them. But when it comes to laterals, either they don't want to take the assessment, I do not know whether they are scared to take it or otherwise they just say that we are already champions, so why do we take the assessment? But finally when you hire and then put to the customers, sometimes the fresher fares better than the laterals. So how do we solve this problem of the automation on this particular aspect? Because I think that's creating a lot of waste in the industry when we have so many people lying and people don't accept. And we get folks who are experienced, but they are actually not good anymore because once we hire and then they are not get selected by the customers. So you have any idea on that?
Yeah, I think a very interesting question because I think it's also important in terms of what exactly are you bringing it on. Yes, if you talk about lateral level hiring or you're talking about a particular I think when you're talking specifically in a very tech kind of a space or engineering kind of a space, a particular level and above, nobody wants to do a kind of an assessment. So it also depends on what really is the ask, where is it coming from. The other is in terms of, there are certain organizations where you do have to go forward to the customers and probably that becomes an agenda where in terms of why is it required, how do you go ahead and actually evaluate those people? Is there a different tool? Because we had something similar happening in one of the organizations that we worked at, and there was it was named differently. It wasn't really called, because otherwise what they feel is if they're giving a test, they're giving exactly what is happening to a fresher. So it was really positioned separately, and there were times when probably when a fresher exam was happening, that is something which happened with an external vendor organization who did it for us. However, when it came to lateral, which meant slightly more senior folks and all, it actually happened in-house.
So thank you for being an absolutely engaged audience. It's time that we call in the next panel. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, panelists.